Okay, my friends, here it is. The video that is going to give you my 5 top tips to maximize your harvest abundance. Now, if you follow these 5 things, not only will you harvest more bounty from the land, but you will extend your harvest window. Because now is about the time in the season for most of us when the plants are starting to yield. And so here they are. Now, these 5 things are in no particular order because they are all equally important. So the first thing is going to be harvest frequently. Now this is probably the most important thing, and here is why. Because the plant, its primary objective in life is to reproduce, is to ensure the survival of its kind by making another one of itself. And so, for example, if a pepper or a cucumber, if the plant grows a little bit and then puts out a pepper, and then you just allow that pepper to sit there and grow and ripen, and then the pepper is going to say, okay, my life purpose has been fulfilled, and so I'm not really going to need to produce more because I've already produced seed, viable seed for next year. This is definitely true with cucumbers. Okay, so, but if you pick from them, then the plant is going to say, oh no, we're under attack. And so to multiply its chances for reproduction and survival next year, it is going to throw out the alarm, and it's going to say, okay, we need to produce way more stuff because we're in an area, we're in an environment that is hostile towards us. And so for that reason, they will produce a lot more. Now, this is going to be true with your things like cucumbers, green beans, the summer squash, definitely, all of the flowers and herbs, peppers for the most part until you want to let them ripen later in the season if you're going to grind them into like spice and stuff, and all of your leafy greens, okay? So your cucumbers, this is very important, guys. With the cucumbers, if you let even a single one of them get super big and turn yellow, then that's going to signal to the plant, okay, my life's purpose has been fulfilled, and it's going to stop yielding. And that is the number one problem I see with people's cucumbers, is that they don't pick them enough. All right. Also true with green beans and summer squash. Definitely, guys. You want to pick them when they're nice and young. I got all these patty pan squash outside. So delicious. I've been throwing them on the grill pretty much every night. I've been grilling tons of stuff from the garden. And look out for that video coming soon, how to grill the garden. And the more that you pick, the more that they produce. And the flowers and herbs are going to be the same way. When you are picking or cutting the marigolds or the echinacea or the calendula, all that stuff, it signals to the plant, we are under attack. We need to go into overdrive and produce more. Now, this is true except for the storage crops, which I will get to later. I will explain to you. This is true except for the storage crops and the root crops, because obviously if you pick the beet or the carrot or the turnip, it's not going to produce more. Second tip is going to be harvest before the flower sets appear. And this is going to be particularly true for all of the herbs, all right? Your basil, the cilantro, the mint, the summer savory, all of this kind of stuff. You want to pick it before the flowers set, and here is why. Because remember, the plant has one primary objective, and that's to reproduce for next year. And so if the plant... When the plant is growing, the herb, basil for example, when the herb is growing, it is producing essential oils to as like a pest repellent for the particular kinds of pests that it doesn't want to eat it. All right, it's a defense mechanism, but we like this. This equals the essential oils equal the flavors and the smell and the aroma and all of that of the plant. So we like this part of it. But the plant is producing it as a defense compound. But then once it switches to the flowering, and you start to see the flowers appear, then it switches its focus from essential oil production to reproductive flower and seed production. And so it's going to focus all of its energy on producing the flowers and seeds. And so the essential oils are going to kind of evaporate, and it's not going to be nearly as flavorful and tasty and odoriferous as it would be otherwise. And it's going to just stop producing. Once the flowers set, and there's seed appears, the plant like basil, cilantro, mint, all that, they're going to stop growing. So if you want to keep them producing all season long, you need to cut them down heavy. Cut them heavy, okay? Cut them till their first couple sets of leaves. And then it's going to go, oh no, we're under attack. So it's going to grow really big and vigorous. I'm on my third run, my third batch of basil, okay? So it just grows right back nice and vigorous and bushy. All right, the mint and everything. Once the mint just started to go to flower, I took the hedge trimmers and cut it down till it was like this. Cut 2 feet off of it. And now it's all growing back super vigorous, okay? So keep it cut. The third tip is to always have something to go in the place of what you are harvesting, all right? Pick one, plant one. Pick one, plant one. This is true with beets, okay? Every time that you pull a beet, put a beet seed in there, and you will keep getting more and more harvest. There is succession sowing. This is a good way to succession sow. All right, so pull one, plant one. Also, things like cabbages and whatever you have to harvest the whole plant. Onions, garlic, all of that stuff. You want to always have something ready to go. After you harvest your garlic, you want to put bush green beans right in that area. And that's going to make the soil nice and fertile and nutrient rich so that you can then plant garlic again in the fall time. All right, and the garlic helps keep the pests away from the green bean run that you can can and all that good stuff. All right. Also, the onions, like for example, I just pulled the onions and I already had Chinese cabbage because I love it for the kimchi, guys. I already had 10 Chinese cabbage plants ready to go in the area where I had the onions. And the onions are going to be beneficial in the sense that there's not going to be really any predators for the cabbage, any insects and stuff, because they don't like the onions, the sulfuric compounds. And so they help with each other like that. So always, when you have something, you got to plan this ahead, guys. When you have something you're going to harvest, always have something you can put in it. Either a seed, like a beet or a green bean, a bush green bean, or an actual plant, like a cabbage, a Chinese cabbage, or an actual Brunswick cabbage for the fall garden harvest. Number 4 is to always undercrop wherever possible. Now, what do I mean by this? I will show you. You see here we have the kohlrabi, and the kohlrabi is nice and big, and the leaves are growing huge, and they're shading out the soil around it. But right about now, see, I thought about this in the future, of course. I was planning this. Right about now, we are going to harvest the kohlrabi because it does pretty good in the heat. But you can see under here that the beets, I already planted them about 3 weeks ago, and they are just starting to grow up. So when I harvest this huge, massive kohlrabi leaves, I'll pull the whole plant, then that's going to allow these beets to already be there and already be partially grown up, and so that they will take over and be ready to harvest way sooner. This is true with things like the beets under the kohlrabi or under the cabbages. Also, if you have anything on a trellis, guys, if you've trellised your cucumbers, okay, then go ahead and plant peas, your fall planting of peas, right now underneath the cucumbers, because the cucumbers they're short-lived plants anyways. They grow and produce a bunch of stuff and then they kind of fade away. So don't try to nurse along the sick little cucumbers and stuff. Just plan on it, okay? Get a big abundance, but then go ahead and now, even though your cucumbers are still in the ground, plant them the peas right along the trellis. That way when the cucumbers are done, you're gonna just cut them at ground level, and the peas are already going to be a couple inches tall by that time. And so they are going to then grow up and be your fall harvest. It's going to be, that's the way to do it, guys. You can also undercrop things like flowers and peppers with sweet potatoes, but that you would have had to already plan out. But you can plant stuff that is tall, like different kinds of flowers or peppers or even tomatoes and stuff, and then undercrop your sweet potatoes. Keep that in mind for next year. Now, the 5th and final tip, guys, is do not rush the storage crops, okay? So this is true about the potatoes, the winter squash, the onions, the garlic, etc. And the potatoes, definitely. I see a lot of people harvesting potatoes once they see that the leaves of the potato plant is starting to get some kind of blight or starting to turn brown and stuff and look kind of gnarly. They think it's time that they got to harvest the potatoes. Guys, leave the potatoes to go totally dead and crispy, okay? You do not have to actually pull the potatoes. What I do is that I just plant them, like I have 15 of the grow bags from the video that I showed you, and I plant in there, and then they grow all season, and then they die, and they turn super brown, and I just leave them in there all the rest of the season. Up until right before the frost starts to come, because that will damage them. And they will stay perfectly good there, guys. You do not need to harvest the potatoes early. And the longer that you can wait, the more that you just let them totally die, the vines die and cure in the ground, they will actually store longer. Their skin will be set, and when you harvest them, they'll be a lot more robust for storage all winter long. Because as soon as you pull the potato out of the ground, the clock starts ticking. So you can just leave it in the ground as long as possible. And if you live in a place with mild winters, then you could even just leave the potatoes in the ground and put a foot of straw on top of it and get the potatoes as you need it. Okay, another thing is winter squash, okay? Contrary to the summer squash, which we want to pick all the time, we want to pick often when they're nice and small and succulent, and it will just produce more. The winter squash, actually, we leave them all on the vine all the way until just a couple weeks before frost comes, because they can't get a frost, the winter squash. But we will let the plant die and we let them cure in the sun, okay? Just let them cure out there in the sun until the skin is nice and hard on them. And that's going to ensure that they store all winter long. Don't rush it. Now, here's a bonus tip, guys. Now is the time in the season when you'll start noticing deficiencies in some of the plants if your soil is less than perfect. So keep on giving it the liquid fertilizers. If it's your leafy greens, cabbages or kale or collard greens or the things like that, then you can give it any of the high nitrogen type fertilizers, like the fish fertilizer is ideal. Also the ash fertilizer, the urine fertilizer, the grass JLF, all of those are going to be good still for the leafy greens. Now, for things like the peppers or the tomatoes or the cucumbers, the things that are going to yield a fruit, then we can back off the nitrogen a little bit and add the bloom fertilizer from the video that I just made, okay? So that's pretty much it, you guys. If you feel like you gained something from the video, give it a thumbs up. And thank you guys so much for being a part of the Viking tribe. We are now 100,000 strong. Yes, and growing all the time. This is only just the beginning, my friends. You will see. If you want to know how to make the ideal bloom fertilizer, I'll direct you to this video here, and it is going to show you exactly how to make a high potassium, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium fertilizer.